I'm the type of guy that likes to look at blogs in my free time. Personally, I don't have any ability to see ghosts whatsoever. I never thought I'd be here writing anything like this, but I've come to tell you about something that happened to me last month. I have the permission of all those involved to tell this story, just in case. I think the people here are more likely to believe what I have to say, so please listen. The protagonist of this story is one of my friends who has a strong ability to sense the supernatural. We've been friends since junior high school and we still frequently go drinking together, even though we're on the cusp of turning 30. His family have been working as Shinto priests in a rather large shrine where we live for many generations now. Usually they have regular jobs, but at times like New Year's or wedding ceremonies they work as Shinto priests as a kind of side job, or perhaps it's their main job. The family tends to live close to the shrine. So, one day we decided to go out drinking and met up at my house first. My friend and his girlfriend arrived first, and we played some video games while waiting for another lady to show up. I'm gonna call my friend from the shrine Matt, the girl who came late Sarah, and myself Anon. Matt's girlfriend I'll call Christine. We played games for a while as we waited, and then I got a phone call from Sarah.
Sorry, I'm gonna be a little late. We found something interesting in the shed and the family's been wrapped up in it. You're good at quizzes and puzzles, right? I'm gonna bring something interesting. I'll be there in a bit.
About 40 minutes later, Sarah arrived. Then, at that moment, or rather I should say the moment that Sarah's car pulled into the lot outside, Matt said,
"No way, this can't be. No way. What should I do? Dad's out today."
"What's wrong? Can you see something again?"
Again?
It's not that. Anon, this is not good. Sarah, are you for real?
Matt can see ghosts, but he doesn't usually bring up when he sees them or anything about his shrine work. But every now and then, he starts to tremble like this. We all knew that, but because I didn't want Matt to be forced into such conversations we tried not to bring it up. Sarah came inside and Matt's face turned pale.
"Sarah, what did you bring? Show me."
Huh? What? Are you trying to tell me I brought something dangerous? The shed is being destroyed next week, so we found this while cleaning.
Having said that, Sarah took out a wooden box. It was a cube about 20 centimeters long. So this was what she meant on the phone when she mentioned puzzles. It was made up of small wooden blocks, like Tetris pieces.
"Don't touch it. Don't touch it."
At that moment, Matt ran off to the toilet. We could hear him throwing up. Christine followed him and rubbed his back as he leant over the toilet bowl. When he was done, Matt returned and shakily pulled out his phone to call someone.
"Dad. It's the Kotoribako. My friend brought the Kotoribako. I'm scared. I'm not like a grandpa, I can't do it like him."
Matt started crying. What Sarah brought was so terrifying that this 29-year-old was on the phone crying to his father.
"Yeah, it's not there. I can't see anything but the box. There's evidence it was there, but it seems to be gone now. Yeah, there's something in there, in my friend's belly. I think it's the shape of a shippu. Shippu, right? There's a triangle inside. It's a shippu, there's no doubt about it. I already said I don't know. I'm not like that."
I heard a lot of technical terms I didn't understand, but what stuck out most were the words Kotoribako and shippu.
"Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. If it goes wrong, you'll need to perform the purification. I'm counting on you."
Matt hung up the phone, then bawled his eyes out for the next few minutes. With his chest heaving from the sobs he sat down Caesar style and said,
"Okay, let's do this,"
and slapped his own knees. He was no longer crying. He was ready to do whatever he needed to do.
"Anon, get me a box cutter or knife, would you?"
"What are you gonna do?"
"I'm not gonna kill anyone. I need to cleanse Sarah. Sarah, look at me. It's probably futile to tell you not to be scared, but don't be scared, okay? Christine and Anon, you need to be strong as well. There's nothing to be scared of. I'm not gonna lose. You think I'm gonna lose, huh? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't underestimate me. I'm gonna do it. Grandpa, I'm gonna do it. Just you watch. God damn it."
Matt screamed out loud, trying to blow away his own fears. Sarah was on the verge of tears. She was scared to death. Both myself and Christine were about to cry. Honestly, I was about to wet myself.
Okay. I'll do my best.
We had no idea what was happening, but Sarah kept saying over and over that she understood.
"Anon, bring me the box cutter or knife."
I handed Matt a knife with shaking hands.
Anon, I want you to pinch the inside of my thigh, as hard as you can.
I didn't know what was going on, all I could do was what Matt said. I pinched the inside of his thigh, and while I was doing this Matt cut his fingertip and the palm of his hand with the knife. He probably had me pinch him to try to mask that pain.
Sarah, open your mouth.
Matt stuck his blood-covered finger inside her mouth.
Sarah, drink. Even if it tastes awful, you need to drink it.
Ah. Go.
Sarah was bawling. She couldn't speak.
Nonju, Norio, Shimei Iwado Ikmashita, Kashikama Kanshikamai Mama Mausu.
It sounded like some kind of prayer or incantation, but he repeated it 5 or 6 times. It sounded more like a recitation than an incantation.
Ooh-wee-ee.
As soon as Matt pulled his finger out of Sarah's mouth, she threw up something that was covered in his blood.
It's out. It's out. All right. You're gonna be okay. Sarah, you're gonna be okay. Next.
Matt put his blood-covered hand over the box that Sarah had brought.
Kotoribako, Kotoribako. It's no good. Should have done it properly.
Matt looked like he was going to cry again.
Anon. Call my father for me.
I grabbed his phone and called his father like he asked, then put the phone to his ear.
Dad, I'm sorry, I forgot it. Will you do the incantation with me?
With the phone by his ear he put his right hand beside the box, and 4 or 5 times he chanted something like an incantation again. It really did sound like he was reciting a poem or something. Matt repeated everything slowly, like he was being instructed. Then, finally he said,
It's done. It's finished. It's all of.
Matt broke down in tears. Christine tried to console him, but for 20 minutes he cried his eyes out. The 4 of us all ended up crying together, but the whole time Matt made sure not to make contact with that box. After everyone calmed down, Matt asked me if I had a towel or something that he could tie the box to his hand with. I gave him a thin bath towel, and he wrapped it around the box.
Right. So where are we going to drink?
What?
I'm joking. We'll have to call it a night. Anon, can you take me home?
Everyone was exhausted, so I took them home and we parted ways for the night. Then, about 8 days later Matt apparently took the day off work. I met with him yesterday and we spoke about what happened that time.
Oh, let's see. Sarah's family probably won't like what I have to say, but there's this village up on Mount. Oh. They have things like that box up there. My dad took it there and they've taken care of it. You're better off not knowing anything else about it.
Looked like he didn't want to talk about it anymore. No matter how much I asked him about it, he wouldn't tell me anymore. He just said one final thing.
Inside that box is hatred itself. But yeah, there were quite a few things in there, like fingertips and umbilical cords. We absolutely cannot discriminate. People's grudges are a terrifying thing. They can go and make something like that, you know? Whenever something like that box appeared, my grandfather was the one who dealt with it. He dealt with a lot of things like that during his time, but I never thought I'd have to as well. I've just been screwing around and never really took part in the family business, so I was spooked. I really need to study more, but hey, doesn't really look like I have a talent for it either. And yeah, I mentioned the village and such. But Sarah is all good now, same as before. We don't live in those times anymore. How stupid.
Of course. But putting that aside, do you mind if I tell this fun story to other people?
You really like these kinds of stories, huh? Even though you can't see ghosts yourself, haha.
It's because I can't see ghosts that I like these kinds of stories.
Yeah, I don't mind. It's not like people are gonna be haunted just because you spoke about it. No one will believe you anyway, they're just gonna call you a liar and I'm just gonna feign ignorance.
So, that's the end of the strange experience I had. Sorry for keeping you all waiting. Well, this certainly blew up, didn't it? It even became an independent thread. I live way out in the countryside, so please stop trying to find where I live. If a huge influx of tourists came now, it would be terrifying. Of course, since this all blew up I got a little worried, so I called Matt and Sarah earlier and let them know what was going on. Matt said,
Even if they do know where we live, it's not like they know the details, so quit worrying about it.
I took the chance to ask Matt a few things I'd forgotten while we were on the phone yesterday as well. 1. Aside from Sarah, were those at the scene, meaning myself and Christine, going to be okay? 2. Were the rest of the family who touched the box before it reached my house okay? 3. Just what the hell was that box? Matt's answers are below. Regarding 1 and 2,
The box only affects children and women of childbearing age. Sarah's father and younger brother would be fine, but as for her mother, isn't she going through menopause, anyway? Sarah's grandmother would be the same. Of course you,
myself,
will be fine, and I was a little worried about Christine, but she didn't touch the box for very long, so she should be fine. If push comes to shove, I can take her to see my father, so it's all good.
Regarding 3, Matt doesn't know the finer details of the box either, apparently. Just that Kotoribako means child stealing box. I don't know whether that's really true or not. He could be lying to try to get me to turn back on everything. From the way he was talking yesterday, it was like he thinks the less I know, the better. But he probably thought there was no point in hiding that much. The whole thing scares me, but now I want to know even more. In short, after what happened, some contractors came around to dismantle the shed and there was a kerfuffle with the old guy next door. She wanted to tell the 3 of us about it the next day. According to Sarah, she was more curious than scared. As someone who was involved, she wanted to know what happened and just what that box was. So, after speaking to Matt, the 4 of us are going to meet tomorrow, but I don't know if Christine will actually come. Of course, hearing about it directly from Matt's father would be best, but of course Matt is hesitant, so it's a little difficult to ask. If there's a chance to ask him, however, I will. Having come this far, I want to know more. But I don't want to do anything to lose my friends, so if one of them wants me to stop posting about it, I will. At the present time I'm drowning in curiosity, but I also have some feelings of guilt. I'm gonna write about what happened yesterday. It's going to be disgustingly long. I wasn't sure what to do, but after talking to the 4 of them I've decided to publish what happened. I have a request for you all at the end as well. It was a rather long conversation, so summing it all up will take some time. I also heard a few things that really shocked me, so I'm a bit confused. We spoke for close to 5 hours, and I'm relying on my memory for the finer details, so I've filled a few things in and made it more conversation-like, so please understand. There are also a few areas I'll keep to myself. On the night of the 6th we were going to meet at my house, but with everything that happened with Sarah and her family and the disturbance with her neighbor, we ended up going to her place instead. There was Matt, Sarah, Christine, Anon, myself, then Sarah's father, Sarah's mother, Sarah's grandmother and Sarah's grandfather. We'll call the old guy next door John. Below is what happened. This happened 2 days after the events at my house. The contractors arrived on May 23rd with their equipment, and as they tried to enter the yard, John approached Sarah's father. When he told John that they were demolishing the shed, he began to protest. The 2 men argued, and when Sarah heard them she thought that perhaps he knew something about the box. She went outside to ask John about it. At this point she hadn't spoken to her family yet about what had happened.
Don't demolish that shed,
John yelled.
Is the reason you don't want it destroyed because of that box?
Sarah asked. John looked very surprised and in a panic asked her.
Did you find a box? What happened to the box? Are you okay?
When she told him what happened, John blamed himself and apologized to her.
It's because I didn't say anything that this happened. There's something I need to talk to your family about soon,
he said, and then returned home. Sarah then told her flabbergasted father about what happened. Then, when she heard about John's story she wanted to tell us what happened, but he showed no signs of actually coming to talk to her, so she was getting pissed off. Then yesterday she got the phone call from me. With Matt coming as well, she thought today would be the only chance for us to hear that story he had to tell, so she convinced her father to invite John over. Sarah's father asked John if he could tell us the story, but with us being outsiders he appeared hesitant. Then Matt said,
Do you mind if I tell a story first? John, the box was originally in your possession, yes. If you mentioned the word curse to someone these days they'd probably just think of horror stories, but that box is something else. I've heard a lot from my father and grandfather and seen them dispose of several boxes. When either of them speaks of the boxes, they are seriousness itself. They even have a ledger that details all of their dealings with them. And while it may have been an accident, people have died because of that box, as you well know. My father had his doubts, and the fact that this time I was directly involved in what happened made us both check the ledger last night. It showed the location of the ship to be John's house. If that's correct, then something isn't right. Of course, my father said. Our family has a rule not to get involved with the boxes, but this time we had no choice. My father wanted to come, but seeing as I was the one to purify the box, I'm the one who's here today.
John fell silent, along with everyone else. This was something between Matt and John after all.
Now, John, if the box was in your house, of course there's no way that Sarah's father would know about it. That I can understand. Sarah's grandfather received the box from the Taylor household, and then died shortly thereafter, right? According to the ledger, within 1 year the box moved from Taylor's house to Sarah's house to John's house. Sarah's grandfather didn't have time to tell his son about the box, that we can understand. Moreover, considering the number of years in the arrangement, it's a little hard to think that it was now Sarah's father's turn. Chances are, it was either your house or Taylor's house. But, this time the box appeared in Sarah's house. That's a little strange, isn't it? I haven't taken part in my family's line of work much, so I haven't taken a good, hard look at the ledger, but I looked over it yesterday with my father and was surprised. Until I heard Sarah's story, I thought perhaps there had just been a mistake, and that you didn't know of the existence of the box, but you did know, didn't you? Even though you knew of the box, you didn't take it on. Then, even though you knew it was in Sarah's house, you kept quiet about it. This time I was able to purify the box, and if you just played dumb during questioning, that would have been the end of it. If by some mistake no one knew the box was in Sarah's house, then that would have been fine. But you were impatient, and you were scared. I wouldn't even be here today if we hadn't looked at the ledger last night. We have a rule, it is forbidden for us to come here, so I want you to look past the fact that I'm here today. I had to come. I am angry. So is my father. But we understand that having to follow an arrangement made by ancestors you've never met is also harsh. You want to run away from it, I get it. I was the same. When I saw the box that day, all I wanted to do was run away. It was only a short period of time, but I wanted nothing more than to get away from it. Having to keep that for 10 years, or tens of years, I can't imagine how scary that must be. But if this sort of thing is happening here, then there will be problems when dealing with all the other boxes. Sarah barely ever went near the box, and it was only by coincidence that we met that day. If we hadn't, Sarah would probably have died. And now the other boxes might be causing damage too. So, I want you to tell me, why did this happen? Not only that, Christine was there too, and she's a woman. Of course, she's able to give birth as well. She's not an outsider, she's a victim. And that guy,
Me.
he might be an outsider, but he might not be. His name is O. It's a fairly common surname around these parts, isn't it?
I had no idea what was going on. But John looked at me and went,
Ah, right. I should explain about the box first, I guess. Both Sarah's, mine and Taylor's house across from us have been looking after the Chipu.
I thought it was Shippu, but apparently it's Chipu.
The box has been divided between our 3 houses. We take turns looking after it, and after the head of the household dies, the next household receives it from the previous owners, and then they keep it until they die, when it passes on to the next household again, over and over. The head of the household explains about the box to their next in line. If there is no next in line, they explain after they get an heir. If, for some reason, the head of the household is not blessed with an heir, the box passes on to the next house. It's the same for all parties. There are 3 or 4 other households with boxes. We try not to talk to the others. The reason the box gets passed around is to weaken what's inside it. When the head of the household receives the box, they are to keep it away from women and children. Then, the houses that are not in possession of the box are to watch the house that does. Then they receive a paper talisman from Matt's household, and they're to replace the old one that's affixed to the box. The households keep the box for the designated number of years, and after the insides of the box have been weakened, it's reported to Matt's family to be taken care of. It's to be taken to Matt's family shrine.
Then, as was my family's agreement in the past, we take care of the box. A memorial service is held for the dead. This service is held with all the boxes' current owners and the ledger.
That's right. Originally, I was supposed to receive the box after Sarah's grandfather died. But, to tell you the truth, I was scared. I'm so sorry, please forgive me. After Taylor died, and then Sarah's grandfather passed on as well, I was scared, even though I knew it had no effect on them. I was terrified of when Sarah's father would bring me the box. But, after the funeral, several days passed and he never brought it. I went and spoke to Taylor's family about it, and we thought it was possible that Sarah's father didn't know about the box, and perhaps it was our chance to get away from it all. The first thing I did was ask in a roundabout way about the box, to confirm whether he knew about it or not. We kept watch on the shed, and after Taylor's relatives changed the paper talisman on the box, we planned to move away. Then the other parties would think, that family is finished with the box now. I continued to watch Sarah's household. Then, after the allotted number of years had passed, I would have the box delivered to Matt's shrine. Then, I'm so sorry. Because Sarah's household didn't know about the box, even if Sarah or Sarah's mother died, I thought I wouldn't get caught, because the other parties aren't allowed to get involved in the other boxes. I discussed this with Taylor. I'm so sorry. I don't know anything about the other boxes. I never thought it would really happen. I'm so sorry.
John got down on his knees and apologized, over and over. Sarah's father was apparently told by his father not to go near the shed. And in reality, the shed was so creepy he never thought he would go near it. Then, when they started talking about finally tearing it down, Sarah found the box when tidying up. Sarah's father, mother and grandmother couldn't believe it, but apparently only Sarah's grandmother understood what it was. She supposedly said,
"So that's why he didn't want us near the shed."
I see, so that's what happened. Even though you didn't take the box, you had to monitor it, and in the end you still couldn't escape it. You had to worry about it for another how many years? Was it 19? If you had taken it, in the end I would have had to purify it, huh? Sarah's father, mother, grandmother and Sarah. This story probably makes no sense, and you likely have no idea what's going on. But this is reality, and you probably think it's stupid, but it's real. But I'd like you not to get mad at John. Considering he knows what's inside that box, of course he'd want to run away. But the box is gone now, so it's okay. Please forgive John and treat it like an interesting story you've just heard. I want you to forgive him.
John looked down and dropped his head. Looking at him, he seemed somewhat pitiful.
On top of that, you probably all want to know what was inside the box. Having come this far, I want you to keep listening until the end. I don't know everything, but I'll tell you what I do know. The box is finished, so I think it won't be a problem, but in reality there are still 2 boxes left that I'll likely have to deal with at some point, so it's my decision to tell you. Plus, it's something Sarah's father originally should have been told, and Anon has been persistent in asking me about it as well.
The box is called Kotoribako, meaning the child-stealing box. It was created from the second half of the 1860s to the start of the 80s and was filled with the bodies of children killed by their parents. In the past, this village was the site of terrible discrimination and persecution. And so, because the persecution was so terrible, the children were often killed off. Yoshida Village, a place name alias, was under the control of the Yoshida family, and persecution at their hands was especially awful. Then, when the breadwinners of the household wanted children they would go and have them. But with no decent wages it was difficult to raise them, so they would kill them. There was an uprising in the Oki Islands in the second half of the 1860s. It took them about a year to suppress it, but in that time one of the people involved escaped to this village. You learn about the reason for the revolt at school. Oki is a very prosperous land. Well anyway, that guy's name was O. It was the same last name as mine, so I'll call him Anonsen. According to who you ask, when they managed to suppress the revolt and brought Anonsen here, he supposedly found a chance to escape. He ran all the way to this village. The people of the village were already under a heavy burden and thinking he would bring more trouble they tried to kill him. But then Anonsen said to them, "If you help me, I'll give you a weapon." The weapon was a small box. Or more accurately, how to make the box. When the villagers asked him what type of weapon it was, he explained everything and they agreed to his conditions. Anonsen then gave them one more condition. He would show them how to make the box, but he wanted them to turn the first box they made over to him. If they agreed, he would teach them. If they couldn't agree to that, they may as well kill him. The villagers agreed, and so Anonsen showed them how to make the box. Apparently Anonsen said to the villagers that after hearing how to make the box, they could still quit, and they could still choose to kill him. That's how sinister the box was, and Anansen thought so as well. But he also told them, once we go through with this, my life is forfeit, but there are just some things you have to do. The first step was fitting together several complex pieces of wood as a box. This was so it couldn't be opened so easily and was the hardest part of the process. The box we found looked like a puzzle. Next, the inside of the box is filled with the blood of a female beast, and then after waiting a week, a lid is put on before the blood has dried out. Next, is the interior. This is the origin of the name Kotoribako. It's just like you would imagine, I think. They put part of a child they've killed inside. From babies that were just born they put in their umbilical cord, the tip of their forefinger up to the first knuckle, and intestines that have been soaked in blood. For children up to 7 years, they put in the tip of their forefinger and intestines soaked in blood, and for children up to 10 they only put in the tip of their forefinger. Then they close the lid. The number of children inside changes the name of the box. 1 child is Ippu, 2 is Niho, 3 is Sanpu, 4 is Shippu, 5 is Goho, 6 is Rapu and 7 children is called Chippu. Anansen apparently emphasized that they could go no higher than that. Then, each box was to have a seal to indicate what type of box it was. Ippu had a triangle, Niho a square, and so on. But the box Anansen himself would bear, the Hakai, needed 8 children under the age of 7, and in addition to that, he needed an extra woman and child. He told the villagers that under no circumstances were they to make a Hakai ever again. Normally you would think that hearing all this you would no longer go through with it, right? Hearing such an awful story from a shady man, no matter how hard your life is, how could you live with not only the pain of killing your own child, but then treating their dead body in such a way? But you see, the villagers agreed, and went through with the box-making process. I don't know what their motives or mental state was, but they must have been under frightful persecution. Persecution so terrible that they would kill their own children in order to have a weapon they could hold in their hands. Then the first box was made. Each house had discussion after terrible discussion of which children to kill. Then they carried out their plans. Then, finally, the Hakai was finished. Anansen explained what effect the box would have by using the woman and child he had asked for. Their names were redacted. The names of the 8 children were redacted. They were family names we knew, but I can't repeat them here. So, the effect of the box was like I explained before. The box possessed and killed them, extremely painfully. Somehow their internal organs were torn apart, not from touching the box, just from being near it. Then, seeing the effects of the box right in front of their eyes, the villagers went ahead with creating their own. The first box they built for themselves was a Chippu. The box mat purified. A box. Filled with 7 children. In less than 2 weeks it killed 15 children and 1 woman. How awful. Then, they gave the box to the Yoshida village head for safekeeping, under the pretext of the villagers' good faith and sincerity. The Yoshida household suffered painfully, the women and children vomited blood before they died in agony. They explained what happened to the Yoshida family's superiors and other areas in the vicinity, and warned them not to get involved in the village's affairs anymore. They wanted to be left alone. They would not forgive what had been done to them, but if they were left alone, they wouldn't do anything further. If they agreed, those who were in Yoshida for work were to no longer come there. Then, if people wanted to retaliate, they would once again bring out their curse. The box that was given to the village head was also to be returned to the village. As for why they wanted it left there, they never publicized the reason, they just wanted it there. Then, they continued making boxes. Before long there were 7 of them. I think that this was just a bluff though, they hadn't really made 7 more boxes. It might be rude to say, but it seems difficult to believe that villagers who couldn't even read and write would be able to come up with all this. It had to be the work of an onsen. The Yoshida family and the surrounding villages agreed to the terms. News of what happened got around, so people immediately stopped meddling in the village's affairs. Even so, the villagers continued making boxes, like this one. Anansen was already out of the picture, but he apparently told them how to handle the boxes. Women and children were not allowed near them. They were to be stored in dark, damp places. Lastly, the power of the boxes would weaken as time passed. If, by some chance, they no longer needed the boxes, or it had gotten beyond their control, they were to be taken to a shrine to be dealt with. A temple was no good, they needed to be taken to a shrine. The villagers continued making boxes for another 13 years. Other than the first box, they only made the boxes when they needed to call the children of the village. When they killed the children, they continued to despise and curse the Yoshida family. They wanted to feel less guilt about the killing, to have Yoshida village returned to them. In their 13th year of making boxes, they made the 16th box. There were 6 Ipu, 2 Niho, 5 Goho and 3 Chipu. Looking at it simply, that meant at least 56 children had been slaughtered. There were rumors of failed boxes as well, so that number was probably even higher. In the 13th year there was an accident. At the time all the boxes were kept in one place to be monitored. Then it happened. An 11-year-old boy snuck in and stole one of them. The worst part was that it was a Chipu. The higher the number of the box, the stronger it was. Not only that, it was a Chipu that had just been created. Thinking he had found an interesting new toy, the boy returned home with the box. Within a day all the women and children in his household died. For the first time, the villagers felt true fear regarding the boxes. They keenly felt their real power, and how they could come back to bite them if neglected. Having felt their true power, they realized that if they didn't deal with the boxes, it could happen again. Absolutely terrified, they decided to dispose of them. You know most of what happened after that. 5 representatives came to see Matt's family. They asked his ancestors to dispose of the boxes. But they were too strong, so they had to be weakened first. This was done just like John explained. Then, after the agreed number of years had passed, the boxes were to be brought back. O's shrine was not to get involved in the meantime. When the previous owner died, they were to alert them. The number of years each box was to be held was probably an approximation by his ancestors. Depending on how strong each box was, it could be 110 years, or in the case of a Chipu, 140 years. There was a rule that those looking after the boxes were never to run away from them. After the parties were divided up, one person was chosen from each to be a representative and delivered the box. They then informed O's shrine who had what box, and after that person informed his ancestors. They were killed. This way the other parties wouldn't know who had what box and for how many years they had to look after it. It was forbidden for any of the parties to speak to each other about the boxes. As for why they didn't look after all the boxes together, this is just what my grandfather said, but the burden for a single person would lessen the responsibility of what had been done. Having a small number of people would make sure the real burden was felt, and that they couldn't escape from it. Then, after the allotted number of years had passed, the boxes would be brought to the shrine and disposed of. Unfortunately for him, Matt's grandfather and great-grandfather had to deal with quite a lot of them. The number of years was different for each and the rule for deciding it was unknown, but his grandfather dealt with most of the boxes. All but the Chipu, which had the longest time limit, and was to be dealt with during Matt's generation. He thought that time was still far ahead of him and hadn't seriously thought about it yet. That's everything about the boxes that I know. That, and the Chipu that Matt cleansed was the very first Chipu ever made. The above happened last night. I was honestly troubled over whether I should publish it or not. It's clearly something taboo, and something the villagers wouldn't want outsiders to know. But, Matt said there are still 2 boxes left. 2 Chipu. Matt said he will bear the responsibility of dealing with both of them, and after we listened to his story, we still had a lot of questions, so I thought I would publish it to get people's help. At the beginning I said I had a request for you all, and this is it. After you finish reading this story, if you have any information at all, could you let me know about it? I won't give concrete details about where we live, and I'm scared to tell you our names, but out of my own interest I want to know more. After listening to Matt's story, there are still a lot of unknown parts to both Matt and his father. Both Sarah and her family, and also Christine wishes to know more. Matt thinks that, in this day and age, we can perhaps fill in some blanks. With occult stories, you don't know just how much of it is really truth. I wouldn't believe in the boxes myself if I hadn't seen one with my own 2 eyes. Who is Anansen, and where did he originally come from? How did Anansen learn to make the boxes? Why was Anansen in the Oki Islands? Where is the first box, the Hakai? What happened to Anansen after that? What did Anansen do with the Hakai? I learned that the government in Kyoto sent prisoners to the Oki Islands, so does the origin of the boxes come from the Kyoto area? I also have a desire to learn a little more about my roots. When my father was born, he heard that his ancestors came from the Oki Islands, but we don't know any more than that. I don't know whether I have any connection to Anansen. Of course my sister doesn't know anything about it, and when I ask my mother or grandmother about it they just say there's no way they would know. Is there anyone who's well versed in history, or perhaps has seen the word Hakai pop up in their local history or folk tales? We don't know anything about the origin or the boxes or how they got their names. I'm just guessing, but I guess Ipu and Niho mean the first sealed and second sealed. Maybe the Hakai means the 8th seal. I won't reveal our names, especially my last name. I've also concealed where we live and any important information about it. It might be silly to ask for information considering how little I've given out, and I'm sorry. But if you know anything, please let me know. I intend to go to the library myself and research some local history. If you know anything, please leave a message.